Uh,
Guys, Jackie M, how you doing? MOMC Series 5, Session number 2. And we'd love to welcome Liam Ghani from the Muddled Pantry. Guys, don't forget to share this out to everyone and say hello, let us know where you're watching from. And yeah, so we've got Liam Ghani, but just give us a couple of seconds while we play a quick clip from Tourism Malaysia, and we'll see you back here in 30 seconds.
Hey, now, hey, now, that was a different flow. Hey, now, you gotta see the release. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. Come on, gotta make a move to get there right now. Somewhere nice so we can get away. Better than the ordinary day. You're my paradise. Malaysia, truly Asia.
Hey guys, okay, it's Jackie M back, and we are with Liam Ghani from themoddelpantry.com. And Liam, great to have you back with MOMC. Say hello to everyone. Tell us what you're making today.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks so much again for having me back. It's awesome. Very excited for today. My name's Liam Ghani, as Jackie said, and I'm from the Muddled Pantry, which is a food blog based out of South Africa. And yeah, we're going to be cooking a really awesome dish today. So I'm very excited to be sharing it with you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, I know that our co-founder of MOMC, Paul Gray, has actually attempted your recipe before, but I haven't seen you do it. So I'm really keen to see how different it turns out. But yeah, guys, don't forget to sign up at malaysianchefs.com/join today. And Liam, in fact, this is the first time you're actually using one of your recipes on an official MOMC series. So we're going to grab your recipe off you and put it in our next eMag, right? So guys, you'll be able to get a hold of Liam's recipe in eMag 6. Make sure you sign up. And yeah, so Liam, whereabouts are you from, for those who don't know you, and how did you end up in your part of the world?
Okay, so I'm actually born and bred in Penang. I lived there till I was about 16, and then, like so many of us, I went overseas to the UK to do my studies, and then I ended up living there for a while. And then 20 years ago, I basically moved to South Africa, of all places. I knew nothing about South Africa at the time. It was a leap of faith, and 20 years later, it's obviously worked out. So I lived just outside of Cape Town. I was in Cape Town for about 20 odd years, and then I've moved out to a small little village called Stanford. Been here for about 6 months, living a nice bucolic village life again,
so
which is wonderful.
I thought it was longer than that. Okay, cool.
No, not that long. No, maybe 8 months. Who knows? With COVID these days, I don't know whether to count in those first 2 months of COVID into my life anymore. It's sort of, that's like a little black period. But yes, so here I am, and my blog, if any of you ever want to check it out, it's called themoddelpantry.com, and it's very much about recreating food from my travels, primarily from Asia, in South Africa, where we have difficulty getting some of the ingredients that we would normally associate with Asian food. It is an understatement, yes. It's getting better. It is getting better. But yes, so the blog is all about how to make authentic food as best as you can without necessarily all the ingredients that you need to have. So, but that is not a problem for today's dish. Today's dish, I've got everything I need, so no substitutes here today, which is great.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so tell us about today's dish, because I'm not familiar with it. Tell us what you're making. And yeah, like I said, I'm not actually familiar with it per se.
No, it's not actually a very common dish. It's not something you would really find in many restaurants, etc. It's very much a home cooking meal. So it's Ayam Lada Hitam, so that's black pepper chicken.
The way he pronounces his Malay words, guys. He's Malay too, this guy. Anyway,
I know. Sorry, the English accent and South African accent's creeping in. Give me 2 weeks in Malaysia and I'll be back to normal. Don't worry. I promise you. It's in there somewhere. So yes, unlike a lot of pepper chickens that most people know, this is not a very saucy dish. It's actually quite dry, and you actually you do add a little bit of water, but you cook that down quite a lot. So you end up with quite an intense flavored dish, which is wonderful. It's not really. There's 2 types of pepper that go into it. There's some white pepper that we use for when you marinate the chicken a little bit, and black peppercorns for when we actually make the sauce itself.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a great dish. It's very easy to make, very quick. Goes very, because it's quite intensely flavored. It goes very well with coconut dishes and side dishes, so like sayur lodeh and all those sorts of things. So you want to serve it with something that's got a little bit of kuah to it, something a bit saucy, but also something a little bit neutral. But I have to warn you, no, you won't smell it. My kitchen is going to be an aroma powerhouse in here. It's amazing what just a few teaspoons of peppercorns can do to the air. So if I start coughing, you know why. It's authentic.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know. Oh, look, I've been there. Not just pepper, chilies. I always have to turn down all my mic.
Veggie extractor fan is strong enough for Malaysian cooks.
It's impossible. Right? It could be an idea for an invention. All right, let's see you get started while I say hello to some people. We've got Lionel. Great. Yeah. Go on. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, so first things first, the chicken. So I've specified in my blog that I actually use chicken breast. Now, the trick is you've got to make sure you use, firstly, meat with skin on it. The skin is quite important because it renders a little bit extra fat. And that sort of fatness really helps with the spiciness of the overall dish. So don't go for skin chicken, and preferably chicken on the bone. So I've actually got a mixture of thighs and chicken and drumsticks, which I've actually chopped into little pieces. Again, you don't want big chunks. You want something that's quite easy just to sort of gnaw on and really get in there. So that's my chicken. We're going to start. And first things first, we're just going to marinate.
Hello to Hamima. Hamima, as usual. She's saying hello, Jackie. Hello, Liam. Yeah. All right. Sorry, go on.
No, so basically, it's very simple. First things, we're just going to season the chicken a little bit. So I've got a little bit of salt and a little bit of ground white pepper. Now, white pepper here, we battle to get proper white pepper. It's usually, because white pepper is a lot more expensive, strangely enough, you can't really get pure ground white pepper. So I suggest you actually get the peppercorns, because often the white pepper, ground white pepper, is actually cut with black pepper. So if you want a purer taste, really go for the peppercorns. You know exactly what you're getting, and they're relatively easy to find. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of the pepper and the salt into my chicken, and we're just going to massage that in.
Cool. So how do you grind your pepper? Do you use like a pepper grinder, or do you pound
No,
it?
I actually use just the pestle and mortar. That's all I use. Yeah, you don't really need to use anything else. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to one side. Let me just wash my hand quickly.
Cool. And in the meantime, so hello to Enkun from Wollongong. Yay, Wollongong in New South Wales. Zaleha from Bristol. Yay, Zaleha.
Hi, thanks for joining us.
We've got Tagrams, greetings from Amsterdam. How you doing? And we have Andrew from Seattle. Always a pleasure watching Liam. See you popular, Liam.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for being awake for this. The time difference and all. Anyway, so I'm just going to run you through our very simple ingredients that we've got.
Cool, sure.
So it's shockingly few. So basically, what we've got is some ginger, about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. With those, you just want to peel them and grate them or crush them as much as you can.
Okay. Sure.
Spice-wise, we've got 2 tablespoons of black peppercorns. We've got about a tablespoon of cumin seeds and about half a tablespoon of fennel seeds. And then to garnish, that's literally it. That's all we're putting in this, plus a little bit of water and oil. To garnish, we've got some spring onions and some red chilies, which we'll just add in at the end.
Wow. That's got to be like the simplest recipe ever.
Yeah, it's very straightforward, which is great. Again, you know, I'm all about trying to find recipes that gives you that authentic flavor without really a huge long list of things that you need to get. And also, when you're not dealing with Asian cooks, as many South Africans and British people, it's really about what they have available. And a lot of people are very reticent about going out and buying big jars of things and lots of stuff, which they're never going to use ever again. So this is a great recipe if you want to avoid that. So all we're going to do, firstly, is we're going to toast our spices. So obviously we toast our spices to get the intensity up, release some of the flavor, and it gives you a much more fragrant dish at the end of it. So we're just going to add it to a wok, cold wok. I'm just going to turn it on. Pour that in.
That's something I almost never do. I almost never toast any of my spices.
I find actually if you toast your spices too, especially if you're going to grind them after, I find that it actually helps with the grinding a little bit. I find just because it dries out a little bit, you get a slightly better, finer texture than if it was actually whole, if it was untoasted.
Okay, sure. Oh.
So we're just going to toast this off just for a little bit, not too long. Now, obviously, you'll know when it's done because the flavor will start permeating up. I can already start, even on the very low heat already, I can start smelling it.
Cool.
Okay. So just a little bit about this recipe as well. So this actually is a recipe that I've adapted from my aunt's cookbook, Rohani Jalani, who's a very famous Malaysian cook and food writer, and she very much started very much things like this that we're doing today, doing food classes and food demos in a home. And so, yes, I've just changed it. I've changed it a bit here and there just to suit my taste a little bit more than hers. But yes,
in what way?
If you ever want to check out Rohani, she's amazing. She's, yeah, like I said, one of the vanguards of the things that we do today.
Right. Did you learn to cook from her at all? Or?
No, not really, because I never really learned to cook before leaving Malaysia. So no, sadly, I never attended one of her classes. I've had the privilege of eating food from her class, but never attended. Okay. So that is literally all I'm going to do with the toast spices. Just be careful. Always err on the side of caution. You don't want to burn it. So if you think it's starting to burn, just take it off. Okay, so those are my lovely toasted spices, which I'm just going to drop into a pestle and mortar and leave just for a second to cool down just a bit. Okay. Now you want to let it cool down just for a few seconds, just because obviously they're very hot at the moment and they've generated a lot of steam. So if you were to grind them now, it will actually affect the overall flavor, or not flavor, the overall texture of the ground spices. So you don't want that moisture in it. So in the meantime, what I've done, so I've actually ground my ginger and garlic, like I said, 6 cloves garlic, about 4 centimeters of fresh ginger.
Okay.
So
we've got Bob, Chef Bob. Hello, keep on cooking, guys. Chef Bob.
Hi, Chef Bob. Hey, Sarah. Sarah's my cousin from KL.
Oh, okay, sure. And you got Nina from KL as well. So Rohani Jalani, is she still based in Malaysia or?
Yes, very much in KL. She doesn't run the cooking school like she used to. She used to have this amazing house in a kampong in PJ. And yeah, she had designed the whole front of the house basically as a cooking school. And it was the first time I'd ever actually gone to a house that was just geared for that sort of whole setup. And she had this most amazing mirror above her cooking station and things. And yeah, it was full on amazing stuff.
You see, Hamima knows her. Hamima just said Rohani Jalani is a great cook. She has a beautiful house where she teaches small groups to cook. What a small world.
Oh, does she still do it? Ah, okay. I know she's moved. Unfortunately, I don't get back to KL very often. And when I do, I only really see my family who are like available to come in and hang out.
Sure. Yeah.
We've met for lunch a few times.
Okay.
So I'm just grinding my paste. So when you grind your spices, again, if you've got one of these, if you've got a spice grinder, all the better. But if you're using a spice grinder, really make sure that your spices have returned to room temperature first. Otherwise, I've had a spice mixer before and it all gets clogged up because of the steam and it ruins it. So don't do that. So I've just ground mine nicely. The best action to do is actually to move it around rather than pound. You're not really pounding, you're just trying to get friction between the two bits of stone.
Sure. Now I was going to ask you, how do you pass the difference between white pepper and black pepper? I almost use them interchangeably. Well,
okay, white pepper I find is a lot muskier than black pepper. So it's got a lot more fragrance to it. But for that reason, you've got to be very judicious in how much you use. So, you don't really ever substitute the same amount of black pepper that you would with white pepper because it just becomes too overpowering. Like in this, for instance, we've just seasoned the chicken with it. We're not going to add it to the actual sauce because then it would just be too much. But it's a great flavor enhancer. But as we know, we often use it when we're sprinkling over dishes. For instance, like if you have wonton mee or whatever, that little sprinkle of white pepper makes all the difference. So it's very fragrant. It doesn't have quite, I don't think it has quite the heat that black pepper does.
It doesn't have that sharp,
No, it doesn't.
bite to it,
So that's my spice paste. That's my spices all nicely ground up, ready to go. So
Cool.
first things first, we're going to put some oil in the pan. Now, you're going to want to use a fair-ish amount of oil because we're going to brown off the chicken first. So I'm going to use about 4 tablespoons.
What sort of oil are you using?
I'm just using neutral vegetable oil. So any sunflower seed oil, canola oil, anything like that.
Cool.
So I'm just going to get that.
So we've got Sid saying hello, Jackie and Liam. Got Annie saying hello from windy and wet England. Bad luck, Annie. And Tigger Arms is asking what about using long pepper?
Long pepper?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with long pepper.
I've never heard. Somebody Google long pepper for us, please, so we can find out.
Yeah. All right. So I do like that both you and Paul use like whole chicken pieces. Like I said, I keep telling people here in Australia, we're so used to using just fillets and usually off, skin off, bone off.
Yes,
fillets
I know.
here in
It's
Australia.
the same very much in Europe as well. To find chicken on the bone somehow seems to become a very difficult thing, which I don't truly understand because, to be honest, chicken on the bone, even if it's less than great chicken, you're going to get a lot more flavor. Even if you actually cut all the bone off and cook it, you're still going to get a great flavor. Plus, you end up with lots of nice bones of stock, which, as you all know, I mean, my fridge is filled with chicken bones and shells of prawns long gone in anticipation of lots of stock. So, okay, so I've added my chicken as much as I can skin down. I'm just going to let that brown off for a couple of minutes. But yes, while that's happening, anyone's got any other questions, please hit us up.
Apparently long pepper is called pipli. I've never heard of that either.
Oh, okay. Well, you've just guaranteed my Google search tonight. I know what I'm going to be Googling.
Yeah, I know. But we'll get back to you on that, guys. So actually it's quite interesting because I did spend a couple of years living in England at the turn of the 21st century, 2000, just right at the end of right after the whole mad cow disease panic, right? And like you couldn't buy anything on the bone at the time because they were worried about the bone carrying mad cow disease. And it was so frustrating for an Asian trying to cook like bone broth and not being able to get any bone anywhere.
Oh, no. Otherwise, at the time, known as broth of death.
Yeah, possibly.
It's amazing how hysteria just takes over. But mad cow disease seems piffling these days in comparison to what we're all going through at the moment. So,
you reckon? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just letting it fly off. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fry off the chicken, and then we're actually going to take the chicken out of the pan, and then we'll add it back in once we've actually fried off the ginger and garlic a little bit.
Okay, sure. Now, Paul's just said that that pipli tastes like a stronger black pepper, according to Wikipedia.
So thank you, Wikipedia. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. So that sounds like it would work, but I've certainly never heard of it.
Okay, so I'm just going to flip my chickens over. Now, I don't want to cook the chicken too much. Again, I'm just sealing it. It will cook in the sauce. Okay, over. Okay.
So when you when you seasoned the chicken with pepper and salt earlier, like, are you meant to leave it for quite a while, or could you just use it right
away? Not really. It's really just about 5 minutes is enough. So as you're prepping other stuff, just do that first, leave it to one side, and yeah, you're good to go. Really, all you're doing is just seasoning it. You're not really marinating it per se. So just like sometimes if you're making masak merah and you would do the same thing but with a little bit of turmeric, all you're trying to do is get a little bit of color and flavor onto the outside of the skin, not really penetrate in. So don't fret too much about it.
Sure. So did you grow up eating this at home? Like, did your family cook it?
No, I have to be honest. Even I was not. I wasn't that aware of this dish. I think, especially when you live in Penang, you tend to eat a lot of Penang food and a lot of Chinese food. So, and my grandmother was Nyonya, so you ate that type of food, and unless you sort of went to actual Malay households and you enjoyed it there, then no. But it's not. It's unfortunate because I think we have so many great dishes that kind of have fallen to the wayside a little bit when it comes to when people talk about Malaysian food. It's always rendang. It's always char kway teow. There are the big star recipes, but there's so many other slightly more interesting recipes that are very easy to make. And I'm well up for advocating those things. Because there's only so much rendang one man can eat.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely have to give this a go and see how it turns out. But could you use, like, is it always done with chicken, or could you use other kinds of meat with this?
I've only ever made it with chicken. I don't see why you can't. The only thing that, again, for me, the big part of it is the chicken skin, which I like. I like that slightly rubbery texture. And I know there are some people watching this going, gross.
Yeah,
I know. But I like it. I think it adds to it. And yeah. So I think with the sauce as well, that richness of the skin plays very well with the sauce. So yes, you could try, but I mean, personally, chicken is the cheapest. It's available for most people, and so unless you're adverse to chicken, I would stick to chicken personally.
Okay, sure. Okay. Hey, Chef Joe in the house. Chef Johari Edra says hi from KL. I don't know if any of our master chef, our masters of Malaysian cuisine chefs are familiar with this Ayam Masak Lada Hitam, because I certainly...
It's a bit of a mouthful, I know. It doesn't quite roll off
Ayam Masak Lada Hitam, right? Yeah, I know. And that's the other thing I want to talk about as well. Because Paul, I get him to pronounce Malay words, and he does them beautifully. And it's something about the South African lingo, right? And Afrikaans and all that you guys can actually pronounce Malay words quite easily.
Yes. Strangely enough, they can. In fact, my partner also, when we're overseas, spends time endlessly just reading out random words on the MRT. They're just reading out random words really loudly. I was just like, shut up. Has no idea what these words mean, but doesn't, anyway. But I think it's also because it's phonetic. So once you understand phonetics, Malay is actually relatively straightforward.
You would think, yeah, because I actually studied languages at Sydney University. My arts degree was I did all languages, and it's interesting just being because obviously I came to Australia as a teenager, but having grown up in Malaysia and speaking a few different languages right off the bat, right? And then you watch Australians try and wrap their tongues around German or French and whatever. It's a really tough gig for them. You know what I mean? Because they end up sounding Australian.
I think the British accent's the same. I find it very funny when my mother visits us here and she says Afrikaans words, and no matter how she tries, it just comes out wrong. I don't know what it is. But shame, it was the same with her in Malaysia as well. She lived there for a very long time, near on 30 years, I would imagine. And she tried when she first moved there to speak Malay, but her Northern Irish accent was just too strong. And she gave up after a while. But the joke was, when she went to the UK, a lot of people thought she was Asian. When they didn't see her face and she would speak, and they would think, and then they would see her think, hang on. So it obviously did penetrate to a certain degree. Okay, so my chicken is just fried off. The other good thing about using skin chicken too is that obviously the fat renders into the oil, which again adds a lot more flavor. This is not the healthiest dish, I have to say. But you know, so what? Okay, so I'm just going to scoop these out.
Cool. So no coconut milk or anything like that in this dish, right?
Nothing like that. No lemak, nothing. Very simple. Okay, I'm just going to turn that down a little bit before I add my ginger and garlic, because I don't want to burn it.
So you guys in far-flung corners of the world have no excuse. All you need is basically pepper and a couple of spices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I'm just going to add that in. Just for a second or two, just to cook off slightly, and then we're going to add the chicken straight back in. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Is ginger expensive in your part of the world?
Seasonally, yes. It can get quite prohibitively expensive. It ranges, so I'm going to have to say this in rands. It ranges from 150 rand to about 220, depending on the time of year. And also the quality changes quite a lot too. So, I mean, we do go through a period where you end up with quite sad looking ginger, but you know, if you need it, you need it. But in South African cooking, that you don't really, ginger is not a very common spice.
I was about to ask.
Again, because of the trade routes, however, there are a number of dishes that actually use a lot of ground ginger, because again, that's what was available when the trade routes came through South Africa. So historically, fresh ginger not so much, ground ginger more so, even in savory dishes. Because you normally associate
like powdered, like ginger powder sort of thing, you mean?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Okay. But it's widely available now. It's not a problem. Very, very easy to get. Okay,
cool.
So then we're just going to fry this off for about 5 or 6 minutes, just to let the ginger and the garlic penetrate in. Now, again, just keep an eye on it. You just don't want it to burn. So if you keep it on a medium-high heat, you should be fine. Okay. Wonderful.
Now,
okay.
Now, Liam, I know we've talked about this in some other broadcasts before about South Africa and Cape Malay, right? So
yes.
There's that tenuous association with Malaysia, even though
yes.
you're not technically part of it because you're actually Malaysian who live like.
No,
right?
definitely not.
Do you get mistaken for Cape Malay?
No, not at all. Mostly because, not necessarily because of my coloring or looks, more because of my accent. The Cape Malay accent historically is quite unique. It's difficult to describe without sounding too rude about it. But it's distinct. And also it's also largely mixed up with Afrikaans as well. And so it's more of a cultural upbringing than it is a heritage issue. So, I mean, I don't really have any great affinity to Cape Malay culture. And also, they very much, their culture, since they left Malaysia and Indonesia, has sort of schismed off. So if you look back at their old history, you go to their museums, you can recognize the connection there. But they've lived in Africa for 150 years, if not more. So, it's very much developed its own personality.
Okay.
But no, I've never been mistaken as Cape Malay.
Okay. Have they intermarried much with like
South African ethnicities? Malaysia, South Africa is very much a country where people try to keep people apart, but human nature always brings people together, and you've got schisms that go left, right, and center, and it's a very diverse country. In fact, it's one of the things that surprised me most about when I moved to South Africa, of how diverse it really is. Because from an outsider point of view, you tend to think of it as very binary. It's black, white, nothing else in between, but nothing could be further from the truth. And very rich cultures as well. Very proud of their history, and it's an amazing place. It really is. Like I said, it's one of those places that you've got to come and experience to understand it, or to get an inkling of it. I've been here 20 years, still don't always quite fully understand it, I must say.
I think South Africa has a reputation for being a little bit edgy. That's a polite way.
Well, it is, but that's part of the appeal. I mean, as they said, that down here, the edge of Africa, pretty much anything goes, which is a great way to live, So I'm just going to add my ground spices in now. Just turn the camera over.
Now, do you use a lot of cumin in South African cooking at all? Because I like cumin. I like cumin with protein.
Yes, we do. Cumin and coriander generally are considered similar bedfellows. So you would find most dishes usually have about an equal part of both spices. In fact, a lot of, in fact, they actually have, they do sell the spices actually mixed 50-50, pre-mixed 50-50.
Right.
So let's just put that in there. We can turn it up a little bit because the spices will stop the ginger and garlic burning so much.
Cool.
Okay. Right, let me just get something.
I mean, must say, I like the way Liam sugarcoats, you know, how people like to keep people apart. Yeah.
South Africa has taught me diplomacy, if nothing else.
Make you a diplomat.
Yeah, so that's not as political as I'll go.
Yeah. Norine is saying, good evening, Liam and Jackie. What's the secret of making crispy chicken skin and stay crispier longer?
Oh, well, look, it depends on the dish you're making. You can only go so far with the crispiness. I mean, you know, you can make it as crispy as you like, and then if you throw it into a sauce, it is going to take on that sauce. So if you want to keep it crispy, you've got to pre-fry it and then add your sauce onto it very late in the stage or on top of it. Otherwise, that crispy skin is always going to become wet again, which can be lovely. I mean, a nice saucy, crispy skin, oh, so good. But yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a case of having your cake and eat it. It doesn't always work out that way. But the best thing to do is to fry off your chicken as much as you want beforehand. So if you really want that crispy skin, do it. Just don't use so much oil. If you're going to actually want a crispy skin, rather use less oil, let the fat render out of it, and you actually get a crispier result. If you add it to too much oil, it's not going to happen. Yeah, so less oil if you want to have crispy skin, and obviously make sure you do the skin side down first. That's the other thing.
Cool.
So what happens here, I'm just going to turn you around. So, oh, sorry, the smell is just hitting me. So what I'm doing is basically, I'm actually in many ways deep frying the spices in the oil. So the oil is getting wonderfully flavored. And, okay.
Do you drain it out afterwards, or do you serve it with the oil?
Serve it with the oil.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Okay.
Okay, sure. And the spices don't burn in all that oil, like
no, it doesn't. Okay. Again, if you move it around enough and just keep it going, I've never had a problem that's actually burnt.
Okay.
Again, I've got it probably erring on a slightly lower than medium heat is what I've currently got it going on at. So now I'm going to turn it up a bit. And I'm going to add a cup of warm water. So, you know, it can be boiling water, warm water. If you use warm water, obviously it comes to the boil much quicker, which is helpful. So let me just pour it in. Okay. Let's turn this back this way. So let's just get this.
And speaking of pepper, I don't know, are you familiar with the Sarawak pepper, Liam?
No, I've never heard of it. God, we're learning a lot about pepper at the moment.
Right. I had one of our transplanted Malaysians here in Sydney. They started this distribution business because they're from Sarawak. And apparently Sarawak has the best pepper in the world. And I never knew that. And they gave me some samples and it tastes amazing. You would never be inclined, you'd never be tempted to just go and grab like some random pepper or something like that at your local supermarket shelf once you've tried Sarawak pepper. So guys, go look up Sarawak pepper.
So does it actually look like regular pepper, or is it a different color? Or?
It does look like regular pepper. Yeah, you couldn't tell. I couldn't tell them apart. But the flavor is just really just pop when you open the packet. It's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I've been stretching my consumption of it because they gave me a couple of packs, so I've been very, very, very stingy in it because I love it so much.
But good pepper is amazing, though, I have to say. Okay, so now the next thing I'm just going to put a lid on it. Just get my... Okay. So I'm just going to bring that up to a boil. I'm just going to put a lid on it for a couple of minutes just to make sure the chicken cooks through. And then once that's done, we'll take the lid off and fry off the rest of the water. And that will basically give us that nice coating over it. But really, this is pretty much it. This is the sum total. So we're just going to chop up some chilies and some spring onions just for garnish as well.
Cool. Sure.
Okay, we just move this away.
You see, even Zaleha Open agrees with me. Sarawak has the best peppercorns in the world. Used to bring them back from Bintulu those days. Cool,
Wow.
very cool. Have you been to Sarawak?
Sorry?
What's that? Have you been to Sarawak?
No, I would love to go. I've never been to East Malaysia. I've always wanted to go. When I was younger, I hankered after climbing Kinabalu, but I think those days maybe passed me slightly.
You don't know that.
At times, but yeah. I remember as a kid, my father was going to climb Kinabalu, and he told me that it was so many times walking up Kopta. A Komta Tower. And I was like, no. One time at Komta Tower was enough, let alone how 30 times or whatever it was he said. So you may have thought he was trying to inspire me. It didn't work.
I remember Komta, like, you know, oh my goodness. I remember my first boyfriend was actually from Penang, and I remember visiting him in Penang when I was 15 years old. And Komta was like the pride and joy of like all Penang at the time. This is like so long ago.
We didn't have much else.
And the funny thing is, when I go back, like, you know, I mean, I tend to go to Penang quite a lot. So the thing, when I do go back to Malaysia, I make a point of stopping over at Penang, and it's still around, and it's still like, you know, quite a problem. I mean, it's hard to avoid, right? Even though it's not exactly.
Well, I can't say anything too bad about it because my best friend, his father was the architect of that building, so I can't really say anything. No, precisely. But amazingly, though, I think, Shane, it's actually quite underrated. If you actually go into the lower section of it, where the mall is, from a brutish point of view, it's actually quite amazing. I mean, there's these huge cutouts and angles, and I don't know whether I was just too young to appreciate it because it just looked like a giant cigarette sticking out of Georgetown. I will never forget the time it got set on fire on top. It really did look like a cigarette for a long time.
When did that happen? I did not know that.
Oh my gosh, years ago. Many, like in the 80s, I think it was.
Okay, wow. I had no idea. I mean, my things I look tired.
The fire wasn't big enough to actually solve the problem. I get rid of contact completely. Sorry, Roz. Love you and your father's work.
Oops. Yeah. I mean, I think my hair makes me look tired. I was telling Paul how, like, you know, the longer my hair gets, the more fatigued I look for whatever weird reason.
It's dragging down.
It is. Every time, like, I haven't had hair this long for at least 10 years, 20 years, right? But back in the day when I did have long hair, every time I had a haircut, people would say, "Oh, wow, you look so refreshed," and all that sort of stuff. So I know it's the damn hair. So I'm sticking by that excuse, Hamima.
Funny. That's brilliant. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've taken the lid off, and I've actually transferred it to a high burner.
Oh, that's quite a lot of sauce in there. Okay, sure.
Yeah. So I'm trying to basically just bring the sauce right down. Now, if you wanted to, once the oil starts separating from the liquid, which it's starting to do now, you can actually have it as a more saucy option. It's not a problem. Okay. So you could actually end the dish about this point. Now we've also added any more salt. So the only salt that's in here is from when we seasoned the chicken initially.
Interesting. And that's enough?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Well, for this amount of chicken, it was about a teaspoon's worth of salt, which is probably about enough. And again, whatever seasoning you had is still in the pan because you're using the same pan for the sauce itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool.
So I just want to get this to a slightly coating consistency. Now, this is also a reason why you can't really use your classic skin chicken breast, because by now it would be dry. This level of intense cooking would just render the whole thing pretty miserable. So if you really, really want to use skinless chicken, I just recommend you use thighs. That would be your best bet. And even bone thighs would be fine. Just adjust your cooking time slightly, and also maybe add less water. Because I've added so much water because I'm trying to cook the chicken down to the bone. Without the bone, it will be about half the amount of time.
Gotcha. Sure. But then it wouldn't really permeate the meat quite as much, right? The flavors. Yeah. Pearlie's in the house. Hello.
Hi,
from
Pearlie.
Penang to Jackie and Liam. Yay.
Hi, nice to have you.
Hamima says, must come home soon, guys. There's a big theme park at Comtar, got dinosaurs. Is that right? Really?
Yes. Look, Comtar certainly has done great work to actually find its place in Penang. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do there now, and I believe you can go upstairs, and they have a lot of activities at the very top. And
Right. I mean, Penang has had some very upmarket malls crop up that I've noticed, but Comtar is still going strong. It really surprises me.
Yes, I know, it is surprising. Yeah. Although I must say, it was always like a dodgy mall. I mean, we used to go there as teenagers and sort of go listen to music. And there's just they had these dodgy little shops all around the sides where you could go and your parents would never find you. So you would go to all the cassette shops. Just sit there and listen to cassettes and smoke cigarettes. Yes, if your kid's going to Comtar, you know what they're up to.
Is that right? Pearlie would know all about it since she's in Penang.
So that's it, actually. I'm done. I'm just going to actually up. So there is a lot of fat still in the pan, so I'm not putting the fat on the plate. I'm actually just tilting my wok slightly just to let it pull down. And I'm just getting the actual chicken itself.
I'm just wondering whether you could use ghee in lieu of the oil when you were frying.
Yes, I don't see why not.
That might make it quite rich, actually, though. But because I'm very, I like ghee. And the other thing I want to mention.
This is the amount of oil that I've got left over in it. Right, I get that there. I'm just leaving that. You don't want that. So I don't just stick the wok over.
Got it.
Okay, I'm just going to garnish it. Some spring onions. Lovely red chili. And that is it. That is your really tasty pepper chicken.
Right.
Pepper chicken. And I thought, I'm normally really bad at this. So I normally don't cook this stuff for lunch, even though it's lunchtime here. So I thought I'd make something a little bit extra as well. So I thought that you've got to have sayur lodeh as well. So I made a little bit of that.
Oh, well, nice.
I thought I'm going to give myself a proper lunch today. I even made some rice, which if anyone's cook-alongs with Paul, I never make rice.
I know, it's like an afterthought. Oh, beautiful. It is. Sayur lodeh. We should get you come back and do sayur lodeh one of these days.
Oh, that would be easiest. So simple. So simple, so awesome.
Cool, very cool. Now, one last thing I want to ask you, because we were talking about the Malay influence in South Africa, and Paul mentioned before that he recognized some words, and one of them was pisang, right? Malay, for those who don't know, pisang is banana. But apparently it's also banana in Afrikaans. Is that right?
Yes, it is. It is spelled slightly differently, but yes, pronounced the same. And there's a few words. The other one that comes to mind is pondok. Is the same, which is an odd one, but basically Afrikaans is an amalgamation language. So what happened was that in order to, obviously South Africa back in those days was very diverse, and you had the Dutch, you had the English, you had the Portuguese, a lot of people. So Afrikaans was initially envisioned as being a language for all. So they actually got together and they pulled strings from different languages that were spoken and brought it together into one language. It's primarily Dutch, obviously. It's actually Old Dutch, so it's a little bit different from modern Dutch these days. But yes, so there's words that are very surprising and catch me off guard quite often. But pisang and pondok are my favorites because they're the most random things you could have thought of.
Yeah, that is very random. What's the population of the Cape Malay over in South Africa? Like, are they like? Do you notice them everywhere, or are they very kind of like?
No, look, we have we have what sounds awful. So you have black, whites, you have coloureds and Indians in between. So the coloured population is also quite a diverse population. So the Cape Malays are a small portion of that subsection of the population. So you're probably looking at about 2% to 3%, if not less, possibly, than a Cape Malay.
Wow.
But Cape Malay culture is very much also confined to Cape Town and to the Western Cape. Obviously, over the years, they've moved around throughout the country, but the heart and soul of it is in Cape Town. And again, Cape Town has a population of about 2.5 million, I think it's current, nearly 3. So it's a small slice of that alone. So it's not a lot, but their presence in the culture and in the cuisine is very much felt. Especially
do
in
they have their own
Afrikaans
grocery stores and stuff like that? Like, do they have like a Cape Malay town where you have like Chinatown and stuff? Or
you have the Boerkaap, which is a very colourful neighbourhood on the slopes of the City Bowl in Cape Town, just on the Table Mountain, and that is historically where the Cape Malay population settled. So that is like kind of the ground zero for it. And then they do have a number. They obviously have their own shops and things, but generally speaking, spice shops have sort of transplanted themselves all around the country. So generally, if you go to a spice shop, you'll find what you would need for Cape Malay cuisine as much as you may find it for for Indian Durban cuisine. So it's not so sort of exclusively packaged like that.
Okay. Oh, very, very fascinating. I love all this. I love like culture and language and accents and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we'll have to have you back and introduce sayur lodeh, maybe like some Cape Malay dishes as well, right? I think everyone would be very interested in how they compare and contrast with like Malaysian Malay and all that. So yeah. So guys, don't forget to check out Liam's website, themodelpantry.com. You can see from the way he talks that he likes to write as well. So it's an entertaining read. Like his food blog is not just recipes. It's like it's got all his preambles.
I do like the sound of my own writing.
All right. So themodelpantry.com. And of course, if you want this recipe, go and sign up at malaysianchefs.com/join today, and you will get access to it and all our other recipes, especially when eMag 6 comes out, and it will have Liam's. And we'll try, in fact, we might do a quick profile of you in eMag 6 as well. Doesn't that look beautiful? The other thing about Liam I'm really jealous of is all his beautiful crockery. He goes back to Malaysia and he probably brings home like container loads of all these beautiful.
You have no idea. You should have seen when we came back from Japan. My entire dining room table was just covered in little pointless plates. And I love every single one of them.
But at least they're getting some love, At least they're getting used. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around and checking this out. I think this is a recipe that I think none of us have any excuse to not attempt, at least, because it's so so easy to pull together, right? Ingredients wise, at least, anyway. It looks delicious. All right. Thanks again, Liam, for being a good sport for doing this. And guys, make sure you guys stick around for our next Wednesday is our next 2 broadcasts, and that's going to be with Mat John, Masak Apa Tak Jadi Hari Ini, and we'll have more recipes and more fun with our chefs again. All right, and Sid says, thank you so much for an entertaining, informative session tonight. Beautiful food and love your dishes. There you go. See, Liam's always popular. And then we've got Narayan, looks delicious. Thanks so much. And Nina says, pointless plates. I like that. All right, and keep an eye out for Liam's. Yeah, and the other thing, Liam's got a fine arts degree from England, so he takes the most beautiful food photos as well. All right, it puts me to shame. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of the day or evening, and we will see you back here on Wednesday. Thanks again, Liam. Ciao.
Bye.
go.